Hello. So I'll be talking on Anglo-Saxon democracy, a case study of US, Canada, and Australia. We are going to see the differences and the similarities of these democracies. But before we start, we have to know the word Anglo-Saxon. So it's a word typically used to designate the people who, from the 5th century until the Norman conquest of 1066, occupied and ruled the regions that now make up England and Wales. So the Anglo-Saxons and they are the descendant of Germanic tribes, the Celtic settlers of Britain, and the Vikings conquerors. So the different dialogue that are collectively spoken by these people are called the Old English. So why do we associate these people with United States? Because United States copied some of their uh, democratic principles that these Anglo-Saxons practice, like the freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and others. So the United States and United Kingdom are two of the world's most powerful and prosperous democracies. Both governments were established centuries ago and have not evolved significantly since then. So the founding fathers of the United States in particular, we are unable to totally reject the 200-year-old European and particularly English politics, and that it impacted the construction of his political system. So despite certain similarities, the functions and legislative executive branch, as well as the magnitude and distribution of power within the government, differs greatly between US and political UK political framework. So the main distinction between United States and United Kingdom is the existence of the two different type of government. Why the US practice the presidential system of government, the UK practice the monarchical system of government. And by the presidential system of government, I mean that the US elects the president, and the president stays in office a particular number of years. And the United Kingdom is a constitutional monarchy ruled by the Queen or King. However, the Queen has primarily ceremonial duties, while the Prime Minister, who is the head of the government, exercises the majority of the authority. So, both countries benefit from the fact that the President and Prime Minister are not elected directly. In the United States, the President is elected by the Electoral College, and the members of the dominant party elect the Prime Minister in Britain. So this function it serves to reduce the manipulation of ordinary folks while promoting choice through more competent and professional perspective. So their term in office are one of the most notable discrepancies between these two uh, uh, system of democracy. Like I said, in the presidential system in the United States, you cannot serve longer than four-year term, but the prime minister holds office for life until he or she loses support of the House of Commons. So this is advantageous to the United Kingdom since it helps to more stable government, because they believe that the longer you stay, the longer you stabilize the country. So both countries, both United States and the United Kingdom have a bicameral legislation with various powers and functions. In contrast, the House of Lords is appointed by the Prime Minister. This is the primary distinction between the American and the British Parliament system. In addition, both the Prime Minister and the President determine the composition of the cabinet. However, while the President does not interfere with the cabinet's work, the Prime Minister is an active participant of deliberation. This is the disadvantage of American system of government, as President's role decision is a bit restricted, I say. So we have to say that in general, the both system of government correlates to the political culture, as state has demonstrated by total GDP and political stability. Despite the fact that both nations face political and economic obstacles, their respective government possesses the means and authorities to confront and maintain leadership on international scene. So the political system of United States and UK, they differ significantly in terms of power distribution, specialized function, and organized structure. Some of the characteristics are advantageous for ensuring successful and stable policies, while others hinder the execution of advantageous measures. However, both systems have developed as a result of socio-historical process and are consistent with political culture and perspective government. So we are going to now talk of the case of Canada. So Canada combined vastly dissimilar British and American constitution. So the rule of law is the highest authority in Canada, which is a parliamentary democracy. According to the Constitutional Act of 1867, which serves as the basic of Canadian written constitution, there must be one parliament for Canada, comprised of three distinct components, that is, the Crown, the Senate, the House of Commons. As Canada is a federal state, it is one federal, 11 provincial, and 3 territorial governments. The shared responsibilities of enacting laws. So, Canada Constitution is a combination of distinctly different British and American Constitution. Similar to United States, Canada has a federal system of government. It was modeled after the American example, with modification prompted by American experience and Canada requirements. So Canada reading constitution brings it closer to the United States than to England. However, if you take it literally, it will offer you a very erroneous impression of how the country is managed and how we see it shortly the reason. So the reason for this is that, like the British, Canada has an unwritten constitution that controls the execution of the written constitution. So the most essential feature of the Canadian government is a wholly British, not American. The cabinet are selected from the leaders of the dominant party in Ottawa Parliament, unless the executive legislation branches. In 1867, the Canadian province provided the federal union. This British model was already in place. Experience and observation taught them that their system with this separation of powers and checks and balances were superior. As a result, they never considered adopting the system. So this is one of the qualities of the Canadian democracy. So we have to say that we have seen how this Canadian democracy, like, they got a bit from the UK democracy and a bit from the United States democracy, and you have to see that they combined both to make up their own democracies. So we have to talk now about the case of Australia. So Australia government is a hybrid of representative government, representative democracy, and constitutional monarchy. So in addition, it is a federation of states. So there are different parallels between the British and Australian democracies, as well as significant distinctions. So both UK and Australia are constitutional monarchies, with the monarch, or in Australia, the monarch's representative, the Governor General, holding power. Both nations have a type of government in which the Crown delegates its authority to elected government. Although there have been exceptions, particularly in Australia, where neither the monarch nor the Governor General participate in politics or make partisan pronouncements, while the monarch appoints the Governor General on recommendation of the Australian government. The Queen or King succeed to the throne by inheritance. This is just like the British monarchical system. So the Australian Senate, which was based after the American Senate, is elected, with each senator selected by the citizens or of his state or territory. So the upper house of the British Parliament and the House of Lords is elected in any condition. So, sorry, the upper house of British Parliament, the House of Lords, is not elected in any condition. So before 1999, the House of Lords comprised of hereditary peers, that is barons, the earls, the dukes, etc., and 100 of life peers appointed by government for life. As a result of this reform, only 92 hereditary peers are eligible for a seat. These are peers elected by all hereditary peers and the only election for the Lord, in addition to the life peers. So people feel that the House of Lords is undemocratic and archaic, holder from feudalism and serfdom. Another school of thought holds that the House of Lords serve as a barrier against the radical initiatives. So we now have to talk about the constitutions. Unlike Australia, British lacks a written constitution. The vast majority of the United Kingdom government apparatus is founded on convention or legislation. There are numerous limitations on this authority of the Crown, the Parliament, the Cabinet, etc., but none of them are defined in a single location. This is because over hundreds of years, Britain's government evolved from a feudal monarchy to a constitutional democratic state. So Australia has a constitution, which itself is a British Parliamentary Act. The only way to amend Australia's constitution is by nationwide vote. Referendum in UK are advisory and typically held on subject of great importance when the government seeks mandates, such as the 2016 Brexit referendum. This is where the votes are taken. So we can see how these three governments they differ. They have their similarities. They have their differences, but the sole concept of it is modeled under the British Anglo-Saxon democracy, and this is when the British transformed from purely monarchical system of government to partly monarchical and parliamentary system of government after the Magna Carta. So this gets me to the end of this topic, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.